A sign of the times and the age rather than coming on Sunday morning for coffee with my big ceramic cup and steaming coffee. We've got these tumblers now that are insulated. They keep your coffee warm. Rainey got these for me, or it was Ellery got this for me through Mom, and the one that says Mama Bear, it's pink. And so, like Rainey's tumblers, they all are insulated, and gone is the quaintness of the morning cup of coffee. Um, Maybe I'm a little old fashioned in certain ways, and other ways, I like being more modern. I like my coffee to stay warm. I put it in this thing. My coffee is hot on my lips even 2 hours later, and I've got to watch it. So I poured this cup of coffee about an hour and a half ago, and I've drunk about this much of it, and it's still hot. And so, good morning without a big ceramic old fashioned cup, although I have a few of those. I had some really. Oh, by the way, welcome to the program. I'm Scotty Roberts. If you've never been here before, this is Sunday morning, and it's Sunday is the name of the show. And it's not really a show, it's just conversation on Sunday mornings. We started this, about 3 years ago? Something like that. Just to get on and talk informally on Sundays. Not part of the formal Intrepid radio program, but the informal side of me and you and whatever we want to talk about. So good morning, everybody. Hey, Camel Tube. Good to see you this morning. And Susie Q, good morning to you. Glad to see you here this morning. Daniel Andra is here. Good morning. Good to have you. Grumpy Stack from Louisiana. Morning, everyone, except Scotty. It's mid-afternoon for Scotty. Yeah, pretty much. How'd daylight savings times go for y'all last night? Did y'all remember? Push them an hour forward. So it's really, yesterday, this would have been, 8 a.m.? Now it's 9 a.m. So good to see you. Grumpy. Yeah, he's grumpy, all right. And so it's good to see you here, brother. Chief Romeldi in Olympus is here. I need echo in my voice when I say his name. And who else have we got in here this morning? Carlene is here this morning. Good to see you, Carlene. Glad to have you here. It's that time of day when I'm awake. I've been fully awake for a few hours, but my eyes still don't feel like they're open all the way yet. So it's one of those. Maybe that's just old age encroaching. Your eyes never really fully open for the day. So, hey, my screen time was down 7% this week. I get these announcements. It happens during It's Sunday. Every Sunday, I get a little announcement for my previous week's computer usage. Apparently, my screen time was down by 7%. I must have been slacking somewhere along the way. Because not only do I do the radio show here, hey, Broken Britain, good to see you. Can't post comments to some destinations. That's interesting. You say, good morning. Morning, Scotty from the UK. And that was somebody else's. It merged in there, I think. Chief Romeldian. Who said you can't post? Yeah, there are some places where the show appears. Facebook, for one. You can't write a post always in Facebook and have it appear in the YouTube channel. Or vice versa, things like that. Hey, I just got an announcement that said I shouldn't be ready to start this radio show at 9 o'clock. Thank you for the timely alarm there, computer. So it's 9:05 right now, and I got an announcement saying, remember to go on at 9 o'clock. So I did not get my morning text message from Elderberry. Is he all right? Is he alive? Is he with us? Dave Potter says, I'm coming at you from an undisclosed blanket fort somewhere in the Midwest, hoping not to wake the parents. Well, that's fantastic. Blanket forts are great. My son had a couple of his buddies over. They all went to the Mall of America yesterday. And of course, Flynn at the last minute asks if we have any money, because he's only got a little money left. And we're like, well, so we scraped and scrounged, and I didn't have time to run and get him cash. So I gave him my PayPal Visa card, which is all, it's not credit, it's just backed by whatever's in the PayPal. And I said, I got about $80. I said, you can use about half of that if you need it. If you need it. Then he had a gift Visa card that he brought still left over from Christmas. I got $20 on that, or $19 on that, he said. So they went to the Mall of America. He had $19 and a little bit of cash from Mom and my PayPal card. And he finds out that his Visa card from Christmas has nothing left on it. It's like, you got to keep really close tabs on that stuff, son. And so he spent $45 on my card yesterday. And, when you're scratching to make ends meet and the kid uses $45, you're like, okay. I don't want to give the idea we're destitute or anything like that. It's just every penny counts these days. So I'm happy to do it for my son. And I'm glad he had a good time. But he came home with his two buddies that they went to the Mall of America all together. And, Carlene, when I met Rainey, I lived about a mile from the Mall of America. That was back in the day when it was still a fairly safe place to go. And now, the Mall of America, we had to warn Flynn. You hear gunshots, run. The Mall of America, it's a nice place. It's a beautiful place. But, man, we got to get KB off Facebook and onto JewTube. JewTube. I thought that was an ethnic thing for a minute there. So he and his two buddies, they're camped out in the living room. Speaking of blanket forts, they're too old for blanket forts, at least outwardly. But they're all sprawled all over the living room floor on the sofas and stayed up late watching. Here you go. You got three young teenage boys. They watched Puss in Boots last night. So there you go. And then they played video games and killed each other afterwards. So, the Mall of America, it ain't bad. It ain't a bad place to go. But you got to be careful, like anywhere else. It's gotten overrun by thuggier elements. By gangs that roam the mall, and you got to be careful there, just like anywhere else. So it used to be a really nice place to go. Now there's enough bad news that comes out of the Mall of America that it's not always the best place to go. And I like to avoid it, frankly. The only time I will go to the Mall of America is the kids like to see certain things there. They like the Disney store. Of course, there's an amusement park in the middle of the mall, which you can access from all sides. And that's expensive. That's like going to Valley Fair, which is our big one up here, like a Six Flags. It's like a Six Flags inside a mall. And it's all right. And there's a bunch of restaurants there. So if I get a nice big paycheck in from a client, I've finished a book and I get a huge paycheck in from a client illustrating a book, and I'll say, let's go splurge a little bit. They like to go to the Lego store, which is, geez, you go to the Lego store alone. Just buying Legos for a kid anymore is like, you might as well take out a second mortgage on the house. It's ridiculously expensive place. So you only go to the Mall of America if you got a little money to spend, or you want to go to a nice restaurant. They used to have the nightclubs up on the 4th floor there, which they closed that down after a while. There's still some restaurants, but not the nightclubs like they used to have. So, Carlene, it's all right. Mall of America is all right. They built that on the site of the old Metropolitan Stadium where the Twins and the Vikings used to play. And it was open air, old stadium. And I remember they tore that all apart, and they had relics. You could go in, you could buy the seat that was your season ticket, or you could buy a piece of something off of the old Met Stadium. That was hearing that Bud Grant died yesterday. Bud Grant was the coach of the stoic coach of the Vikings through the time I was in high school in the 70s and into the 80s. And he retired. He was 95 years old, and he passed away yesterday. It makes me think of the old Met Stadium where the Vikings used to play when it was snowy. It could be 20 below zero and snow on the ground on the field, and they were still playing out there. So those were the good old days. Carlene says, as weird as it sounds, I just want to go walk around and see everything. Yeah, it's cool. It's not weird at all. That's what we do half the time when we go. We go maybe once every 18 months, year and a half. I think it's been a year and a half, maybe even 2 years since we've been to the Mall of America. And it's all right. You got to go. But if you go there to go shopping, you better have money in your pocket. I don't like to go just window shopping. Window shopping does nothing for me. I'm an instant gratification kind of guy. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like I don't want to see Victoria's Secret's window with mannequins in lingerie. I want it on my wife right in front of me. I'm an instant gratification kind of guy. So there are cool things you can do there, though. They have exhibits sometimes. They had a Star Trek exhibit there once. And this is way back. I was still married to my ex-wife. And they had guys in, film-ready Klingon makeup and outfits. They were walking around and they would talk with you. And I introduced one to my ex-wife, and she didn't want to be there. I don't remember whatever the reason was. She was just, when you have a spouse that wants to go somewhere and you say, okay, I'll go with you. But then you drag your heels the whole time. That makes it unfun. I have found that if my wife wants to go somewhere and she wants me to come along, I better put on a happy face or she's not going to enjoy her time there. And so you put on the happy face and you just engage. And at that particular one was one of those times she did not want to engage. And I told the two Klingons, they were both like 6'3", 4, 5, and dressed in the theatrical, the film ready makeup and costumes. They were pretty glorious looking. And I said, you see that blonde woman over there? You need to go say hello. And so they walked over and I saw them say hello to her. And those of you who know her know what she is like. And she had a moment and wasn't appreciative of the greeting by the Klingons, turned her back on them. And they came back over to me, and the one Klingon looks at me and he says, she would have words with you. Kapla. So she was not a happy camper. But they do that stuff at the Mall of America. They've got the aquarium at the Mall of America. The kids do take field trips there from school. Maybe once a year, once every couple of years, they will go to the big aquarium at the Mall of America. It's very cool. I've got pictures of my older daughters, my twins, when they were 3 or 4 or 5, when that first opened up, standing in front of those big floor-to-ceiling aquarium glass windows, and pretty neat place. I like going to the mall to eat food and people watch. Yeah, there's that too. I've gotten to the place where I'm not as impressed by just going out and hanging at the mall. I like the idea of, I told my son Flynn, we get so busy around here, and there's not always time to just pick up and go do something. And in the winter, I don't like to go out and explore in the winter time as much because I don't like getting cold. I don't like walking around in the snow. I don't like going to the woods in the snow. And so I with Flynn, I was just thinking, and I said to him, we need to go do something. We need to get out of the house more. He plays a lot of video games. I'm sitting here always working on this computer. I could work 24/7. If I didn't have to sleep, I'd be down here doing work on stuff. We have so many little things that are going all the time. As an example, Rainey's got the Tumblr company. She does this stuff. And this is amongst many of the things that we do. And she said, somebody asked me if you could do and this was a while back, if you could do like the Superman ripping his suit open and you'd see the Superman costume, except do the Marine Corps emblem. I said, sure, I can do that. So I did that up. And you see about this much of the guy from chin down, just ripping open the shirt and revealing the USMC. And then she said, oh, now they're asking if you could do one for the Army, Navy, and Air Force, maybe even the Coast Guard. So I did those all up, and I used the same base art, just changed the shirt, and I put the camouflage, like a camouflage T-shirt underneath the ripping open of the shirt and the tie, and there's a camouflage T-shirt with the emblem, and I used the Marine Corps has a different camouflage pattern, believe it or not, in colors than the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. So I put those all, made them unique. And then she came back, and now that was a little while back, 6 months ago. And the other day she said, there's a woman that said, do we have one with a black guy doing it? Because I used a Caucasian in my art. I said, sure, I can do one of those up for her. And as I'm working on that, she said, could you also do a black woman? And I don't have a white woman either doing these. So I did all these different pieces of art. And mind you, I would do one piece of art, Caucasian woman, one piece of art, black woman, one piece of art, black guy, one piece of art, white guy. But then 4 different ones for each one. That's 16 different pieces of art. Granted, the beauty of the age of technology and digital, I was able to go in and just use the same background art and put in the new emblem for all 4 branches of the service for these 4 pieces of art. And so all of that came off of saying I could sit here all day working on stuff. Now, she sold a whole bunch of those yesterday in the last 2 days, which is good. Now, we don't make a lot of money off of them. She sells them for like $4.99. People who have sublimation companies and are doing tumblers like Rainey does. There's a bunch of those people have those home cottage businesses, I guess you'd call them. And they wanted to buy that art. So Rainey put it up. Said, $4.99 a piece for these. Grouping, you get this much off, 10% off or whatever it is. And so they've been selling like hotcakes over the weekend. Now, it's not enough to pay the mortgage or anything like that, but it throws cash into the coffers. It's all toward the cause. And Anita Palmer says, winter is so depressing. I can't wait for summer where I can get out and ride my bicycle, work in the yard, even mow the lawn. It all brings me back to appreciate nature. Isn't that the truth? I don't get so depressed in winter as I'm just not going outside. I don't like being cold, although I can handle cooler weather. Maybe this is part of older age and circulation and all of that stuff. I don't handle the cold as well as I used to. When I was a kid, I look at my kids. We go to school in the morning. It's like 12 degrees outside and snowing. And like Rowan likes to run out in her shirt sleeves. And there's no coat. Where's your coat? I don't need my coat. I'm not cold. I said, well, stand outside for 5 minutes. You'll be cold. No, I won't. Yeah, you will. Whatever. So my coat's in my bag. Well, that doesn't do you a lot of good. Well, I'm just going to the car, and then you're just dropping me off at the door of school. I don't need my coat. Whatever. Bring your coat along. And, you see kids all the time. I go pick them up in the afternoons. There's kids, and it's the temperature's gone up to 28 degrees, and the kids are all walking home, you see all the guys. They're too cool to put their coats on. I'm too cool. I did that a couple of times. When I was a kid, it was no big deal. But we seemed impervious to the cold. Carlene says, I'm finding as I'm getting older every winter, I'm colder. Yeah, ain't that the truth? So I have a heater going on right now on the other side of my desk. So I'm barefoot, and my studio's in the downstairs, the basement. And it's a basement because there's no exit except upstairs. It's a downstairs if you have an outside exit. It's a basement if you don't. So I keep that heater going down here all the time. And helps me. Last night, I was finishing up these military things for Rainy. And I didn't have the heater in here. It was over there in the bedroom. And by the time I was done, I was cold to the bone. I was like, ugh, I'm freezing. And I went upstairs and I had something warm. I said, I need soup or something. Soup. I need hot soup. And Rainey had, she reminded me, well, there's that roast in the fridge. She had made a roast with, she did the roast up, and then a little later she was out, and I added potatoes and carrots and all that stuff, and more juice of its own, and that thing cooked up. So we had like a stew. That's nice. It's warm me up. Your legs are the worst. My feet are the worst. My feet and my fingers get the coldest. But I was going to bring up this little thing about, I was talking to Flynn about some of the things that we need to do together. And I saw this little quote. It's from Mary Oliver, from her book Swan, Poems and Prose Poems. And she said this, and see what you think of this. She said, how I go to the wood. She says, ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they're all smiles and talkers and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you know, no doubt have yours. As you, no doubt, have yours. Besides, when I'm alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune as motionless as an uprise of weeds, until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unhearable sound of the roses singing. If you've ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much. And when you think about that, just think about that for a second. Let that all sink in. I want to go to the woods with my son, just to walk around and to be a little quiet, but to talk about the things we see and experience and look for mushrooms. Oh, get the ones with the blue dots on them. Wait, what was the one? I saw some clip from, was it Family Guy or was it Bob's Burgers? I think it was Bob's Burgers. He went out to the woods to get mushrooms, and two guys held him up because they wanted his mushrooms. And so it was interesting. But the things you can learn and find in the woods and enjoy what you're doing together. I like to go to the woods with Rainy. Do you know what I like about the woods? The picture that's in my head that I've retained from being in the woods is walking down a kind of a path that's been made over the years of deer tracks and people tracks walking through the woods. And it's a warm, sunny day out, but it's 10 to 15 degrees cooler because the canopy of the woods blocks the sunlight from coming in, except in little dappled spots all around. And I love walking amongst the tall trees where everything looks a little not misty, but it's green, and it's the feeling of green wood. You get that feel when you're walking through. Maybe it's a little humid in the air because of the trees, and it's dark and it's rich. The colors are rich. It's darker because the sun's not shining through. And when a bird calls, it echoes off all the trees around you. I love that kind of experience of walking in the woods. And so Flynn and I are going to go do that. But I don't want to do it in the cold. I don't feel like doing it in the cold. I don't need snowshoes on. I don't want to do that. And so, yeah, there's that. So, let's see. Carlene says, I used to love trail riding with my grandma on all the old logging trails. Yeah. Anita says, going out in the very early morning with my dogs and listening to the silence, the birds talking, a great way to start the day. Isn't that, though? It's like this woman said in her little bit of prose there. She says she likes to be there alone until she feels invisible. And do you remember we were talking some time back about the fae and the fairy folk and things like that, and how you attract them? Now, of course, as skeptic, if you remember the first half of our show on Friday, the skeptic will tell you, well, none of that stuff exists. It's all in your mind. It's your imagination, and so on and so forth. And because none of that stuff exists, it's all natural things, biochemical, evolutionary, all of these things put together. And they deny the presence of the spiritual. The spiritual is inside of you. You are what makes spirituality. Spirituality doesn't exist out there and you run into it. Spirituality is what you make of whatever you encounter. It's all self-made. And to a point, that's true. But I don't deny that there are fairy folk. You can call them whatever you want. Fairy folk, the fae, we've watered that down all so much over the years that it's become, since the Victorian times, very storybookish as opposed to real beings that you encounter out there. And one of the ways we talked about this is what I started to say, is we walk out there, and if you want to attract the fae to yourself, you find a spot in the woods that kind of speaks to you. You wander and you see that spot and you're like, oh, this is the spot. I like this. And it's got to be far enough away from the hubbub of life and cars and people and dog running lanes and things like that and bike paths. You get out there in the woods a little bit. Not so far that if it starts to grow dark, you can't find your way back and you're the next 411 case. But out there enough where you're away from things and you sit there. Sit down under a tree, sit on the ground, whatever it might be, ground yourself there and just be there in the silence. Be silent. Do that sometime if you've never done that. Go to the woods, sit down, and just feel and hear what's going on around you. Feel the silence. Have you ever been up in the mountains? I remember a time I went to Denver to visit relatives, and my wife at the time and I, we went up into the mountains to camp. Probably very ill prepared, if anything. If a bear had come along, what do you do? I didn't know much about that back then, but we pitched a tent and we sat on this ridge that overlooked this valley as you're looking down into the valley, it's a green valley, and there's this river just snaking through it, coiling through the valley. We were so high up. And it was so quiet. I mean, you could hear birds every now and then and things like that. We were up just below the tree line, and you're out in the vastness of this wide open, the mountain range, the valley below you, the trees, and the silence was almost spooky because I just said to her at one point, I said, quiet, listen. And there was nothing. And same way in the woods. If you go into the woods and you just sit, it's silence and it's nothing. And except the sounds of the woods themselves. You'll hear animals. You'll hear brush moving. You'll hear birds, things like that. And but you sit in the middle of that for a while, and you'll realize how secluded or isolated it is. And those are the times when you're looking to make connection with elementals, the fae, and so on. But you have to be careful about that because they can be good or bad. But you sit and you soak it in and you invite them to commune with you. And it doesn't always happen the first time you're there. It might take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different times that you go back to that spot and you just sit and you're quiet. Or you recite a poem, or you just talk. You say something. You sing a song. If you have an instrument, you play a flute. And I mean, me, you know me, and my flute playing. I got my flute right here. Look at that. Which end? And there, this end. It doesn't do anything when I cover the holes. I have to cover the holes differently. Okay, I'd have to have Ruben along to play something. Or a guitar or whatever. Anita Palmer says, city folks have posted signs all over, so it's very hard to go to the woods. There's a ledge in the woods I can see from my window that calls my name. I'd love to go there and just sit. You should do it, Anita. Just do it. 20 years from now, you'll regret more the things you didn't do than the things you did do. Carlene says, on the news today from Texas, a trucker caught what looks like a ghost figure on his dash cam. That's interesting. I'd like to find out more about what that is. Field guy says, come on back down here to Louisiana, then toad trip. Road trip. He corrected himself. Carlene says, we had a couple of places where I grew up that we would go, and you could just sit and set and hear nature. Yeah. Do you know what that would do to us if we had the chance every day or a few times a week to go to that place? Just sit there for a while. How many of us have 15 minutes to a half hour a day where we're not being called on to be responsible for something? I see Uncle Dave is in the wings. I'll bring him on and have him comment on this, but look at Uncle Dave's life. You think, wow, what a great life. But there's not a moment he's not on call. Can he take 15 minutes to a half hour a day just to go commune with nature and meditate? I'll bet it's tough for him. Not that he doesn't love the people, it's his parents, but he's on call. How about all of us? We're all on call to a certain degree. If you're a parent, there's no time. Right now, because Ellery had the surgery on her ankle and they took out that piece of bone, and I thought it was a little incision. I saw the stitches for the first time. She got like a 6-inch swath of skin that's all stitched up. So they cracked her open pretty wide. And so I listened from down here because I'm working, and Rainey's got everything set. She took her computer from her studio upstairs. And Ellery made me this. She makes these and gave it to me. And but every time Rainey was down here working on something, Mom, because the girl can't get up and maneuver the way she used to, and Rainey doesn't want her to, and she's a little bit drugged up at times for the pain in her ankle, but it's all the times that Rainey had to get up and down, up and down, up and down. I said, Rainey, let me go. I'll go. She goes, no, I want mom. I want mom. And so, it's that kind of thing. So there's never a dull moment right now. And the kid's milking it a little bit, but she deservedly so to a certain point. So, how about you, Uncle Dave? Do you ever have time? Do you have time to just go to the woods?
No.
No. But if I know you, you wish you did.
Oh yeah.
So
hold on a second. I'm dropping something. There we go.
Not your pants, I hope.
No, my tablet. Set it down on my thigh. I just decided I'm just gonna slide to the floor while you're talking. It's like,
yeah.
So
Susie Q says Dave does an important job. I admire him for doing that.
It's exhausting though at times.
Yeah.
Now last night they slept all through the night, so I got a decent night's sleep, and I woke up to a clock that was on the right time. I didn't have to do math in the morning.
It was still that way from last fall.
Yeah.
It's finally caught up.
The clock in my room, I don't change. I just leave it, and then half the year I do math in the morning. Take an hour off.
There you
go.
There you go.
Had an alarm go off on my phone.
Your cell phones are all on the right time.
Yeah, had the 8:45 alarm go off on my phone. I rolled over and looked at the
Hey,
clock,
Ryan
and
Gale.
it said 8:45 too, and I was like, oh, it's here.
Yeah. Ryan, do you ever get a chance to go to the woods and just be alone, to hang out? I use the woods as an example. It could be somewhere else, but I wouldn't go to, say, the Mall of America to go have my peaceful, tranquil, meditative time with nature.
But Ryan probably still has time to go do rendezvous because he can do that for work.
Yeah.
But it's also an enjoyable thing. See, that would be groovy if I had something I could do like that brought that much joy to my heart. And I'd say, well, I have to be here because of work.
I would love to get my family involved in that. And I've said that for a few years. We just haven't done it, mostly because of the hassle. I have the idea and I think, oh, it'd be great to get my kids back into either doing the regiment or just doing rendezvous, which is, folks, if you don't know rendezvous, it's like, to give it a median date, like a 18th
1750s
century to 17th century reenacting. And just the setup. I'm set up for the regiment. I still have all my regimental gear for the redcoats, but I don't have any other clothes for that. And so we'd have to prep for that. You'd have to get a tent for that. You have to do your thing. And
I lost
maybe
my
the
camping
thing to do
kit.
is,
I have my clothing, but I lost my camping kit. So
yeah, I don't have my tents anymore. I had tents and they're gone. So they got damaged in the storeroom, and we got to them, and they were pure mold, and they all had to be, all my canvas troop tents all had to be. I go, well, they were gotten rid of when I was gone working out in Utah, so 4 years ago. So that we lost a sofa in there and lots of other little things. Excuse me, I gotta stretch. Oh, my body just hurts more these days. In the mornings when I wake up, from the back of my rib cage down to my hips, it's like, I'm not sleeping any different than I used to, but I wake up hurting more.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
bothersome.
desperately in need of a chiropractic visit.
Oh, we go to the chiropractor regularly.
Therein lies another problem. So I can't just take off, and I used to hey, I'm going to go to the chiropractor, jump in the car and drive up to Fridley and do that. Now I have to arrange someone to be here in that whole time that I'm gone. And that affects other people's schedules, and it just makes it difficult.
Ryan says the woods right now have 60 inches of snow. Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for spring, when it warms up a little bit, to go back and hang in the woods a little bit. The winter time is not a great draw for me to the woods. Roger Rabbit says, I intended to turn the clocks forward before bed, but I fell asleep. I was behind an hour for a bit when I first woke up, I'll bet. So, yeah, it's a good thing our cell phones are on that world clock thing, and it updates them. I remember looking at the first thing I did this morning. I look at the clock, and it was what time it was, 7 o'clock thereabouts. And I went, oh, that's actually 6 o'clock, but it's really 7 o'clock now. So anyway, so what did Field Guy say that's got Susie Q laughing? He says, it's still Saturday because I refuse to turn the day forward. Nice. Yeah, it'd be nice. So, it's spring break here for the kids. So guess what? Got the next 9 days with kids home, and everybody go, oh, that's so wonderful. Your kids are home. That's so wonderful for the family to be together. It's like, no, it ain't. I like when my kids have to go to school. Because when they go to school, mom and dad have quiet time. We're quiet to work. There's not that every 10 minutes. I swear to you, with the 3 kids, every 10 minutes, it's mom or dad or this or that when they're home all day. We've had so many snow days this year. Snow days, and then they had every third Monday off, and then the workshop things. It seems like my kids have been home more than ever.
Yeah.
Hey, Sterling. How you doing? Let's bring in Sterling. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys?
Long time. How you doing? What's going on?
Oh man, a lot. I moved down to South America, Colombia. I've been bouncing around.
Is that where you are right now?
Yeah, you want to see?
Yeah, let's see Colombia.
All right, I'm gonna turn my camera around. Give me 1 second.
All right.
I wish you could just press like one button and flip your camera on StreamYard, but no, you got to press you got to go in there and press several buttons.
Yeah, there you go.
Bear with me.
Yeah, that's the Colombia I know. I know of. Swimming pools, palm trees.
Oh man, yeah, this is Cartagena, Colombia.
Cartagena. The first time the way Cartagena got put in my mind was from the movie Romancing the Stone.
Is that right? I vaguely remember that one.
Yeah. Hey, there's Professor Bowers here. Why is my stove clock correct all of a sudden? Yeah, because he didn't change it last fall. So do you have daylight savings time down there too? Do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't. I don't think they change it down here.
All right. So
no, and it's like Eastern Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess, or at least it was. Hang on, let me see. What time is it there now?
9:43.
Yep, same here.
Heather Marie says our spring break was last week of February for us. Last week of February. When do they start moving spring break into February? It's still winter in February. Crock of crap, she says. I agree. The point of spring break is to enjoy it, not winter break.
Yeah, but the point of spring break is to get away from the cold and go someplace warm.
Yeah. Or to enjoy the oncome of spring. Boy, look at that, Sterling. There you go. You going to go head out to the beach today?
Oh, I hit the beach every day, multiple times a day. I've been down here since January, so about.
Oh my God, it sucks
I've been
to
here
be
2
you. I
months
feel
now.
so bad for you. How do you deal with that?
Horrible.
It's really tough, but
80 degrees and sand in your shoes. Gross.
Yeah, there's like a low of 75 and a high of 90 every day.
Here's Sterling. Oh God, it's 78 again.
No, here's Sterling. Oh, it dipped to 71. I'm going to need a jacket today.
You will hear the locals talk like that. Oh, it's Frio. Oh, it's tough Frio.
What should I put on? Oh, I guess I'll wear shorts.
Guess I'll wear shorts today. Yeah. It's a little cool. I'll put on my tennis shoes instead of my flip flops.
Don't my wardrobe own anything but bikinis?
Oh, there you go. Crocs. Tennis shoes. There you go.
Yeah, they're like little swim shoes, beach shoes, whatever.
Yeah. See, Sterling, where he is now, he didn't wear regular shoes. He wears surf shoes. So just in case I happen to wander into the ocean today. Here's Carlene is joining us too. Hey, Carlene.
Hello. I tried to get back in damn it, I can't find my remote through the chat, and I sent you a YouTube link of that video of that trucker catching that.
The trucker with the ghost in his.
Super cool.
Yeah, it was.
Look, I
I watched it a couple of times, and it's like, wow.
So, hey, Ruben has joined us as well. Look at this. We got a full house on Sunday morning, and Sterling walking the beach down in Cartagena.
I want that beach in my backyard. Thank you.
Yeah, really. Wouldn't that be nice? I saw somebody posted a picture the other day, sitting in a snowbank with their dog next to them, all bundled up in their woolies, and looking at the frozen Lake Michigan, and it said winter or the beach in Michigan right now.
So. I have been there. I've been to Lake Michigan. My mother used to live out in Indiana, Illinois area, and she took us there a few times.
Yeah, we went when the last time I was at the beach in Lake Michigan was in college. We all went down to the dunes on Lake Michigan.
I don't know. I know we went swimming, and I wasn't a good swimmer. And my uncle said, "Well, you're not going underwater. I'm going to hold you under." And that was about the end of me swimming.
His parents trying to cull the herd.
Yeah.
Hey, take a look at the bottom of the lake. Here, let me hold you there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sterling, are those like they're riding the motorbikes on the beach? Are those like cabanas that you can camp out in on the ocean? Are those individually owned, or are they owned by a hotel or something?
Yeah, they're individually owned. Like if you hang around long enough, they got these ones set up and ready to go, and then they're still like working on these every day. They have to break them down and set them back up every day. They can't leave them up overnight.
Oh well.
So yeah.
Oh my God.
Small price to pay. So for being on the beach. So what's your weather? Oh, there I see the surf out there now. So you're gonna go wade into the water. Don't drop your phone. I did that when we were in. We had the whole family out in South Carolina for my daughter's wedding a few years ago, and
oh yeah, that's where I'm from.
We all went wading in the ocean like that. And of course, who drops his phone?
I guess that was you.
That was
me.
I'm
from South Carolina. Yeah, I'm from Charleston. Spent a lot of time in Myrtle Beach.
Charleston.
Yeah, I'm from downtown.
My kids had never seen the ocean, so we took them there.
Oh my gosh! Like I said, I need that in my backyard.
Water now.
It pretty much is my backyard. I've been here for like 2 months now, and it's actually a lot cheaper than I really moved down here pretty much just because of the prices. You can get a place like here. It'll say like on Airbnb, it'll say any of these places. It'll be like from $50 to $75 a night. But if you message 10 of them and you say, "Give me your best price for a week," that $50 just turned into maybe like $35 a night for a week.
Nice.
And if you say, "I'm staying for a month," then it might be
$1,000 a month.
It might be $20 or $25 a night if you tell them you're staying for a month, and then that includes electricity and water, and they have they have a pool, and most of them have a gym, and then of course all this. You know what I mean? So it's a lot cheaper.
That's kind of a nice view.
Yeah.
What did you say? It's how much?
So, like, for example, like I messaged 10 of these places. I said, "I'm staying for a month. Give me your best price." And one of the best prices I got was about $25 a night, which is about $750 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment on the beach.
Nice.
That includes everything.
That's furnished and includes your electricity and all your utilities.
That's right. Wi-Fi, no deposit, no games. Yeah.
Scotty, I love you and the kids,
you were
but I'm
where,
never going to see winter again.
I'm in Colombia. I'm in Cartagena, Colombia right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm on the radio show right now.
There you are.
Yeah, that's my life.
I got it right here. I just got to plug it in and do it. I'm done. I will.
Okay, Scotty, I just wanted to let you know I messaged you the YouTube link.
All right. Well, let's take a look at that.
Yep. Okay, you guys all have a good day.
Carlene, you too. Good to see you on a Sunday morning.
Cheers. Yeah, this place is actually like one of the kite surfing capitals of the world. And in the mornings, like right now, I can actually speak to you because it's actually, I don't know what it sounds like on your end, but it's not quite so breezy right now. But in the afternoons, the wind picks up and you'll see like 30 kite surfers all across the horizon. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So which ocean are we looking at? That's the Caribbean Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico.
Great question, Scotty. I'm not very good with geography. I don't know.
I think that would be Cartagena's on the Gulf, isn't it? I don't know for sure.
I'm not good with it. I don't know. I'd have to look on a map. Sorry, man. I should know these things.
All right, everybody. Where is Cartagena? What coast?
I think it's like
it's like my knowledge of geography down there.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna guess. I'm sorry. I don't even want to know.
That's all right. I don't know. I live down here. I don't know where I am. I just know there's a beach and an ocean and palm trees.
And I've been bouncing around. I've been bouncing around up and down the coast. I spent a week here and a week there, so I'm not exactly sure where I'm at.
So, Ruben, what are you doing this morning up in New York?
Live from New York.
Live from New York.
From New York. I'm in the like 50 miles north of New York City, in Warwick, New York, west of the Hudson. And just across the Hudson is Fort Ticonderoga.
Yeah.
You're familiar with. So
you're very familiar.
Just to kind of give you a little what it looks like outside. A little bit of
a contrast from Cartagena.
A little bit of snow. We finally got hammered and we got more coming, but it's been pretty quiet. I'm well. I'm health-wise very good. And everybody looks well. Chia Dave and Chia Scotty and Chia Professor Bauer. Hello, Professor.
Sterling.
The prof. And it's great to see. Thank you, Sterling. It's great to see the ocean again. It's been so long since I've seen the ocean.
You know, why do all the drug cartels hang out in Cartagena? They got an ocean. That's why they don't hang out in Warwick, New York. You got snow.
Yeah, it's looking at the beach there, it reminds me of the 12 years I spent in Adelaide, South Australia.
Nice.
And that's very much like that. And the nice thing about Australia is it looks just like what Sterling is showing, but it's also topless optional.
Oh.
So a lot of the girls would just be topless playing volleyball, and
nothing wrong with that. I have no moral indignation against topless.
Yeah, nobody cared. Nobody gave a boo. It's only us Americans that are really kind of
I know.
Uptight.
Prudish Americans.
Prudish. Thank you, Dave Chia, for that word, because that's exactly what it is. And for Native Americans, as well, Scotty knows, he would see me at the rendezvous or the reenactments just in a loincloth.
Yeah.
No socks, no shoes, bare-chested, and
we
long
wanted
hair.
to know why Ash didn't dress that way, too. Why doesn't Ash dress that way? Just a loincloth.
Yeah, really. So it's
Scotty, a country full of Olsons.
It's really interesting. You know, I don't mean to bring that up, but I'm just saying that prudish, as Chia Dave said, we're kind of like that. And we only taught ourselves shame when Christianity came in. And it's all the white women that said, "Oh, the natives are naked. They're naked men."
Yeah. They said that because the white men were like, "Oh, check that out."
The oceanic background there.
So it's just interesting, just to kind of throw light on the subject there about being scantily clad, so to speak, and how we feel about that. But in Australia, where I was at the beach, the women took their tops off, and it was quite all right. You know, nobody said boo. Nobody said, "Oh, look," you know. It was just the way it was. And I find that interesting because even when I powwow, even today in a loincloth and leggings, like Last of the Mohicans, some people will come up to me and say, you should put some gym shorts on or something like that. And I'm like,
no, I shouldn't.
I'm period correct. You know,
that's right.
Leave me alone. You know, it's sad. Just
that's
sad.
why we didn't wear. That's why we didn't wear biking shorts underneath our kilts.
Yeah.
So.
There
Professor
you go.
Bauer, how are you this morning? Haven't talked to you in a while.
I am present and accounted for, and I'm still stuck on the image of topless women playing volleyball.
Yes, you are.
It's just kind of bouncing around in my head.
Yeah.
Welcome to church. Welcome
nice,
to church. This is the Sunday morning church, Scotty Church.
There it is. The Scotty Church. We were talking about going to the woods and meditating and things like that. So until you guys came on and started talking about boobs and topless beaches, I'm sorry to have lost Sterling. I was just going to say something to him too. I was going to say, hey, we're loving the background. Even though you're not saying much, just keep it going. But I remember being on the ocean at my grandfather's house when he was down in Honduras on the Caribbean. Everything was, now it looked like they had a little weather coming in over there in Cartagena. It was very gray looking and things, but my grandfather's, it was like, he'd have his days like that, but it was turquoise and white sand, and it was just brilliant colors. The greens contrasted against the turquoise of the ocean, and the blue sky was just great. So
that, Scotty, that reminds me of when Ash and I got married. We honeymooned in the Bahamas.
Nice.
And we snorkeled, and it was great. It was beautiful, aquatic, everything. And then we got out. They said, "Did you know you were swimming in shark-infested waters?"
No, I didn't know that.
I'm from North Dakota, so what the hell do I know? But
that's right. That's right. A North Dakota Indian boy swimming with the sharks in the Bahamas. Very nice.
Yeah, North Dakota, you're only worried about big mouth bass. You're not worried about
yeah, really. What was that brushed up against my leg? Oh, it was a big mouth bass.
And they call the bass is the walleye. Walleye in the Great Lakes is the poor man's lobster. It tastes just like lobster. It's gorgeous, beautiful. But where I come from it's an ocean of prairie. That's what it is. Ocean of prairie.
You got snakes and, well, not necessarily though. When it gets cold like this, up in the plain states in the Dakotas,
a lot of
snakes up there.
Get north.
You always think of the Black Hills as having rattlers and stuff like that. Do they? I don't think they do, because it's just as cold there as it is here.
Yeah, they've got rattlers. I'll tell you a story real quick. In McIntosh, South Dakota, which is the western part of my Standing Rock Sioux reservation, in the Standing Rock sits on the border of North and South Dakota. Anyway, long story short, in the South Dakota McIntosh, this farmhand was doing something in the wintertime, and he dug up a ball of snakes that were hibernating.
Wow.
And they were all quiet and nestled together, and he picked it up and he put it in a gunny sack, and he went down to the local, over his shoulder, local pub, and nice. He had a couple drinks with his buddies, and he put the bag down. Because it was warm, the snakes all woke up, and everybody was standing on their tables because there were snakes all over the place.
Nice.
Yeah, smart.
Well, we were talking a little earlier about going to the woods and spending time and meditating. I read the one quote by Mary Oliver. I'm going to repeat it, and then I've got another one that's a lot more familiar to us. Mary Oliver said, "How do I go to the wood? How I go to the wood? Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they're all smilers and talkers, and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I'm alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune as motionless as an uprise of weeds, until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unhearable sound of the roses singing. If you've ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much, she says. And then, of course, a much more familiar, which was paraphrased in the movie The Dead Poets Society by Henry David Thoreau. He said, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. Nor did I wish to practice resignation, unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan, like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That, yeah, carpe diem.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And who was that said, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have miles to go before I sleep?
I think it's Robert Frost.
Was that
Frost,
Robert Frost? Yeah. I'll find out. The woods.
Yes. I was thinking of that. Thank you, Professor.
Lovely, dark and deep, and I have miles to go before I sleep. I believe it's something to that effect.
Sounds Frostian.
It's another one. Scotty was talking. I was thinking of
Robert Frost. Yep.
Robert Frost. Okay, and spinning it off of that, two paths diverged in the woods, and I took the lesser one. You know, and that, you know, it's just like, and that's when I think of the woods. That's what I think of. You know,
this
in that way.
This poem by Frost says, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. There you go.
You know, when you were talking about the divergent paths in the forest, it reminded me back in '79, I moved to a quarter section homestead up in Alberta, about 90 miles north of Calgary. So a quarter section is 160 acres, and that's 1/4 of a mile. So we had roughly 80 of the 160 were cleared, and we grew Kentucky bluegrass and alfalfa. And the Hutterites would come in every year, and we'd end up with about 4,000 bales of hay from that 80 acres. But we were a half a mile or two sections, our section and the next section, to the Red Deer River. And so those sections were all just square. They weren't, plots with little chunks going out here and there. They were just square 160 acre plots. And so the wildlife, it was in what's called the parkland up there. So it's a very undulating terrain, not a lot of mountains, but it's just beautiful, incredible terrain. A lot of blueberries and raspberries growing in the woods. And as soon as you said that about the divergent trails, it reminded me when I was walking the property one day, and I was heading down towards the Red Deer River, where did a lot of fly fishing, catching 3-4 pound golden and brown trout in the Red Deer River. And it was almost idyllic. It was that kind of stuff where you in a magazine somewhere, sporting. And I was following this trail trying to get to the Red Deer River. And it was a trail that I'd never been on before. And these were all trails that were made by all of the local wildlife. And so I'm walking this trail and I'm thinking, and there's, a lot of bushes and raspberries and small pines and stuff around. So I couldn't really see up. So I'm walking along this path, and I stopped by this huge raspberry bush, and I just started grabbing raspberries and just popping them down. I'm going, oh God, this is great! I love this trail. Kept going a little bit further, and I wasn't sure where I was going. I was trying to listen for the river, listen for the water, so I knew I was heading in the right direction. And about 20 minutes later, I'm walking along, and there's that bush again.
Wow, this looks an awful lot like the one I just.
Wait a minute, I think I just ate here. Yeah, because I was just following the animal trails. So I grabbed another bunch of raspberries, and I said, "All right." There was another path that I decided not to take when I went this way before. So this time I'm going to take that path. And the next thing I knew, I ended up at the river.
Yeah, that's a great story. It reminds me of when I lived in Eveleth, Minnesota, the Hockey Hall of Fame, I think, which is near Hibbing.
That's up there.
Just west of Duluth. Over by Duluth.
Is it the Hockey Hall of Fame or the what's it called now? It came where they use the brooms and the what's that called?
Lacrosse?
No, he's talking about
curling.
Curling
Hall of Fame is in Eveleth, Minnesota.
So I lived there, but I had jobs in Toronto and Ottawa and Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I'd cut across by inferior Wisconsin, known as superior Wisconsin.
Oh yes.
Cut across.
Roger Rabbit's got it.
And then I'd go up to the UP by the Upers, Upper Peninsula. And,
you betcha.
Yeah, you betcha, sure. And cut across, and I'd hit Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And then I'd cross over into Canada to Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. And then I'd cut across. But as I was going across, as you were talking about blueberries and raspberries, I'd see all the local Anishinaabe, also known as Ojibwa or Chippewa Indians, that would sit on the side of the road in their lawn chairs, in their cars parked askew.
We're watching traffic.
They would have these if you remember those gallon buckets of ice cream that you would get, as a kid, just a gallon, whatever, Neapolitan or chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah. Neapolitan. Yeah.
It's a Neapolitan and vanilla or chocolate, whatever. And they would be filled with blueberries that they picked. And it only cost you $5. I couldn't believe it. It was just $5 for a whole gallon of blueberries, freshly picked. And we would, freeze half of that. And there's nothing like having fruit in the dead of winter like that, out of season.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so heavenly. So
Dave and I have an old friend, Rob, who told a story once of going up into like Door County or something, Wisconsin, where you have all the Amish up there, and it was blueberry season. And he said they bought several quarts of blueberries. He just mow those things down. He ate probably a gallon of blueberries throughout the day. And they bought a fresh Amish blueberry pie. And he says, I ate the whole blueberry pie. And Rob's a little guy, by the way. He's sinewy and thin and about 5'2". And so he downs all this blueberry stuff. And he says, a little later in the day, I kind of went, oh, man. And he says, and I pooped a blue storm. He says, it was unbelievable. And
I read.
And that's.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story of I was in a local drum group. We got a Grammy Award at the Grammys. I didn't go, but the rest of the drum group, they're called Lakota Thunder. And we sang, our album was based on the songs from the Little Bighorn.
Neat.
So that was unprecedented. That was wow. So they got invited to Alaska. I didn't go, but the story went that they got invited to Alaska. And these are big guys. They're like 250 plus, just hulking men. And so they went up and sang because there's quite a contingency of Lakota women that married Inuit men. And so they're half Eskimo, the old language Eskimo, and Lakota Sioux. So the Inuits gave the names to the children, but the Lakota women wanted Lakota names for their children as well. So they invited our drum group up, and we went up, or they went up, and they sang. And the custom among Inuit people is to cut up these little cubes of blubber from the whale. And so they passed it out to them, and being Lakota boys, they just went, wow.
I'll bet.
In a half hour, there were all 5 to 7 of those guys were running for the toilet because
nice.
It's like a laxative. Blubber's like a laxative.
Nice.
Going back to the berry theme, you guys have heard the term "I'll be your huckleberry."
I'll be a huckleberry.
So, do you know the origin of that?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be your knuckle bearer.
No, well, the huckleberry is an actual berry. And
well, yeah, but when at least in the film, when he says "I'll be your huckleberry," what he's actually saying is "I'll be your knuckle bearer," which is "I'll be your pallbearer."
Right.
Oh.
But the original use of huckleberries is,
yeah.
They are incredibly they're high antioxidant, they're antiseptic. They are actually one of the most powerful medicinal berries.
I didn't know that.
That are out there, and
wow,
they would be and they grow everywhere. So huckleberries were known for the fact that if you had them, if you were out in a pioneer and you were cutting across the plains, you always had huckleberries, so that for not only for sustenance but for medicinal purposes. So having the original use of it, from what I understand, is that when you told somebody you'd be their huckleberry, meaning you would have their back, you would be there to take care of them.
Which, of course, Doc Holliday wasn't saying to Johnny Ringo.
Yeah, how much of that is actually, for the stagecraft and story as opposed to what was really said, right?
Obviously, yeah.
I
meant in the movie.
And Professor, there is something on the prairie that Lakota people used that was like a huckleberry. Because we didn't have dentistry. We didn't have any dentists.
Right.
For our teeth. So when they got toothaches or rotten teeth or whatnot, they would take the purple cone flower, the root of the purple cone flower. We call it today echinacea.
Oh.
And we call it toothache medicine. Hair prejuta, toothache medicine, because when you chew it, it numbs your whole mouth
or the area. You chew on this root, and then I will knock out your dead tooth with my matonka head. So, yeah. I was. What was it? The thought in my mind has now gone away.
So I'll jump in while you're looking for that thought on the whole concept of plant medicine. So
enlighten us.
I personally think, and we're seeing more and more reports and evidence along these lines, and in particular, the way that plant medicine is being thought of today is more of the psilocybin, DMT, MDMA motif of plant medicine, which is very psychotropic. I think that the exploration and the research has been done particularly into mushrooms, because hey, I'm a fun guy too,
wild and crazy guy.
I think that there's going to be an explosion of not only research, but even in Colorado, they just passed a mushroom bill. I think they have one in California as well, where they're starting to allow the use of these psilocybin and mescaline and so forth to be used in treatments, particularly for depression, PTSD, the anecdotal, let alone the scientific and empirical trials that have been done with these substances, is showing that, and we're seeing this across the board, fortunately, for all of this pharma model of creating all of these different chemical compounds to treat this, that, and everything else, that every time I dumped my cables because I've got, I don't know, 8 or 9 streaming services. And I'm thinking the only reason I had cable was because I wanted to see live football. So that's over. So it's time to let that cost go. But when you look at these, at the ads that are coming out of all these pharmaceutical companies with these bizarre names, and I've been in marketing for 40 years in tech, and I know a good meme or a good marketing term and name when a logo when I see one. But I don't know who's doing this shit. These guys have billions of dollars, and they're coming up with Lupaxitan and some other shit. You're going,
I'd like to have that job.
I have no idea. Yeah, it's like, where did you come up with that name? And then it goes on to describe some condition or group of conditions. And some of them are so vague that you listen to it and you go, well, I don't have that problem. I kind of got that itch thing, and I do have a swelling thing, and I got this kind of hazy fog mental thing, but apparently this new drug will fix all of those. All right, well, I didn't know that condition even existed, and I kind of think I have something that you may have described.
And you notice in all of those ads, they always end with squeezing in 2 minutes of legal information into 10 seconds.
And that's exactly where I was going. I was
use that for legal lawsuits.
Yeah, anal bleeding and all this other stuff. And so where I'm going with this is that I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I'd seen, just before I turned the cable off, I'd seen half a dozen of these ads for conditions I didn't even know existed, for stuff that I didn't know needed to be addressed. And I'm listening to it, and then it gets to the end where here's all the side effects. And I thought to myself, I'm going to take a handful of these commercials and I'm going to reverse them. I'm going to start with the side effects and just swap them around and say, okay, if this could lead to heart palpitations, losing your mind, ear bleeding, all this kind of stuff. And then put the rest of the commercial about what it's for.
Yeah.
So just reverse it. And I think if we did that across the board, these guys would start, they would go bankrupt, because what they're doing is they're selling all of this, pre-concocted and crafted and curated narrative about these conditions. And then they tell you all the bad shit. And if you listen to the bad shit, you go, I think I'm going to keep my condition, because I really don't want to go down that path of having to deal with these, potential side effects, including death, in some cases. So
have you noticed, though, that the side effects, so like there's one that's out there for people that are suffering from diarrhea and things like that, and one of the side effects is anal leakage. Isn't that why you're taking a damn pill?
Diarrhea?
Exactly. So basically what you're saying is your pill doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing, I think, with all of the stuff that's coming out about the virus and the vax. If there is more clear evidence of a complete fabricated hoax of this whole thing with this virus and vax, it is. I used to say that traditional religions were going to be exposed as one of the greatest hoaxes ever perpetrated on mankind. I think this whole virus and vax thing is going to take the cake.
It's going to take the cake. It already has.
It is so blatantly.
Yesterday's conspiracy theories are today's facts.
Yeah, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and fact is about 3 days now. It used to be 3 months.
We used to say three months. So yeah.
It's interesting, Professor, that you're talking about like huckleberries, a medicinal cure, and how everything that you're saying is all synthetic. It's man-made.
That's right.
And if we go back to the natural, like peyote or echinacea, or herbal things,
chamomile,
Native Americans and Asians believe that everything we need is right here. You can grow it in your yard,
that's right.
Garden. All the medicinal things that you do need are there. and it's the
Where's
organic.
that quarter pounder tree so I can grow it in my garden?
The organics are going to help us maintain us, but even things that are psychotropic like peyote was used for spirituality, a way to reach the other side,
right?
In that way, chemical, hallucinogenically, but you couldn't do it just like taking barbiturates, uppers and downers in the 60s, where you get a bad trip. It was also guided by elders that they actually went out at night and with little bows and arrows would hunt. And it's cactus. That's all peyote is cactus.
Yes.
A certain type of cactus. And then they would hunt it. And so it was the whole psychological aspect of, I'm doing this so I can do this. Reach the other side. And they sang songs all night. You stayed up all night. You ate the mash, and you did puke because
so it was like a cast party.
Yeah, but
and the thing was, it was purposeful. It wasn't recreational.
That's right. It wasn't recreational. It was purposeful.
And so
purposeful. Drugs today, you're kind of jumping into the deep end of the pool, in a psychological deep end of the pool where there's no guidance. You're just flailing around, splashing, and trying to survive and get out of it. But with meditation in the woods, meditation on the prairie, meditation through nature, you're reaching that other side. And we have something we call, and I've done it once in my life, I should do it again, but men are required to do a vision quest, a humbletia, to cry for a vision. And you take away food, you take away water, you take away sleep, you take away your clothes, you're totally nude with the buffalo robe, you got tobacco ties in a rectangular shape, and you sit there with a bowl of water and a bowl of dried meat, jerky, for temptation. So
they did a great
you're purposely
presentation of that in the show Yellowstone.
I didn't see that one yet.
One of the sons did a
so the intention is I'm taking away the things I need purposely. Scientists will say, you have no food, you have no water for 4 days, and you have no sleep, you're going to see something. Well, that's the intention. The intention is I'm taking things away that I need in the effect of wanting to reach the other side. I'm going to hallucinate. I'm going to see things. I'm going to see a vision. And you record it. Ant came across a spider, coyote was nearby, eagle flew over, things like that. And those are symbols. Everything's symbolic in that way. So I totally dig what you're saying, Professor.
Well, the other thing I think that people don't realize that we're also going to see as a result of this revolution of plant medicine taking over our current allopathic medicinal approach, is that a lot of these substances, cannabinoids, DMT, dopamines, all of these different drugs are natural, or what we call drugs, are naturally occurring elements within our bodies. So that's one of the reasons that we have different reactions and quite consistent reactions to these various substances. There's hey,
everybody,
everybody's got a little leg going on. Sugar. So the thing that happens, and it's exactly to what you were talking about, Ruben, when you do a fast, when you do a vision quest, the substances that have accumulated throughout your
he said stroke, not tickle, Uncle Dave.
Those substances
just brushing off the screen,
and the substances that are inhibiting those natural elements within that we just talked about that are in the psychotropic realm, the substances that are inhibiting that get drained off. And as a part of that process of not having additional inhibitors on the body, then the DMTs and the cannabinoids and all these other compounds and hormones start coming to the surface. And that's why when you do a vision quest, for example, do a 40-day fast in the Christ mode, the deprivation of other substances allows these others to arise, and you will have almost exactly the same kind of experiences and results had you taken the plant medicine, because the body will change itself. And that's why it's so incredibly important, in my opinion, to at least do intermittent fasting, if not do some 3, 5, 7-day fasting if you can, because the elimination of all of the compounds that we pack in is what keeps a lot of the health and the healing and the natural components of the body from coming to where they need to be, because the body will change itself in order to affect the positive change that
I do that 18-hour fast, which it was actually my chiropractor of all people, who was also a physical therapist. He had said, if you do the 18-hour a day fasting, he says, and you can fit it right into your schedule really easily. He said, just don't eat after 6 or 7 p.m. and then don't eat until noon the next day.
That's a perfect way to do it.
I'm not a big breakfast fan. My problem is I like to eat at 11 o'clock at night. So I have to cut that out. But when I go from, don't laugh, Ruben. And so when I go from 7 o'clock in the evening until noon the next day, every day, I found that I dropped weight, that I didn't crave food as much. Even at noon, I was like, oh, I should probably eat something. And instead of going to grab a donut or something, I go slice up an apple. And so I've dropped like 20 pounds in the last couple of months just doing the 18-hour a day fast.
It's interesting about fasting.
I'm not consistent with it either, by the way.
Well, we're all guilty in many ways. That's what I was thinking, Scotty. But to everybody out there, I did 2 forms of fasting. One I did with the intention for a week. I didn't eat. I had liquids. I allowed myself liquids. And it was the thing that really helped me was spicy tomato juice, or V8
tomato
juice with Tabasco.
You're drinking tomato juice.
It was
watching a Plains Indian talk to you about. Oh, I had tomato juice for breakfast.
Because
what you had was a Bloody Mary without the vodka.
Bloody Mary,
pretty much
without the celery. Hold the celery, please.
It took the curb.
That's what I gave up celery in my Bloody Mary for Lent.
My hunger was curbed, so that was great. But what I realized was how much in preparing food, sitting the table up, eating the food, cleaning afterwards, how much time that takes and how much we give it.
That's like exercise.
I ate 2 meals a day. I eat breakfast at noon or 11, then I eat dinner at 6, and then I'm done. Maybe I'll snack like Scotty at midnight with an apple or something like that. Almonds
or
a 3-layer roast beef sandwich.
The second form of fasting I did was my uncle, God rest his soul, my uncle, hey Rocky. My uncle
Rocky,
Kevin
who,
Locke.
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ruben. Keep your thought. Rocky Stucci, who at one time we did radio together, and he said, cannoli. I don't feel so good today. I go, why? This is what I ate last night. Well, what'd you eat? He says, I ate like a whole box of fruit roll-ups. He says, I added it up. That's like 30 feet of fruit roll-ups I ate last night. And so that's his, oh, hell no. Anyway, go ahead, Ruben.
Well, that's crazy. But I was going to say that the other form, my uncle who taught me how to play flute and hoop dance and buffalo dance and eagle dance, Kevin Locke, God rest his soul, he passed this year. And he was Baha'i follower.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of their poster boy. So he did 55 countries in the world performing as a Native American performer. And Rocky.
Amen, Rocky.
And so
he must be a banana man. Go ahead.
Long story short, we practice. He asked me to practice with him Ramadan. Ramadan is Persian or Persian way of fasting. They would fast from before, they would eat before the sun rose, but as the sun was up all day, and then when the sun set, you could eat supper then. And I'll tell you what, I had a vision, I had a dream that was crazy, in the sense that we were performing at schools, and so we pulled in, and he said, "I'm going to go check if they're open." And so, you know, I just kind of laid back in my chair and I fell asleep. Then I hear this knocking on the door, and he says, "Ho, wana, it's time." So I got out of the car and we walked in, and then everything went dark when I got into the school. And then next thing I hear is, "Ho, wana, it's time." And I wake up. So I had a dream within a dream.
Nice.
And I got out of the car and I said, what's going on? In the parking lot were chairs set up, and the school had turned into like a Chinese building, with the slopes all red, the flags. And I was like, where are we? What's going on? What are we doing here? And he said, "What's happening?" He said, "Oh, this is in honor of the American Indian movement, AIM. They put red for us." And then I turned around and he's knocking on the window again. And I wake up and I realize,
you had a dream within a dream within a dream.
I did. And
nice.
Because of the fasting. And so I told him that, and he said, "That's not uncommon. That's something that happens when you fast." So
that's I'm glad Rocky is here. I wish you would comment on this. The Italian
happens to me when I slow sometimes.
Italian fasting is, hey, we're just going to cut out the pena today. We're only having, Rocky, if you're still there, I sent you a video just because I thought of you. It had a comedian. He was talking about the Italians. He says, after World War II, he says, the Italians, he says, the Italians, we Hitler commits suicide, the war ends. He says, the Italians are all over there cheering with us. Yay, they're celebrating with the Americans. And we're like, hey, wait a minute. Weren't you allied with Nazi Germany? You had Mussolini and all that stuff. You were Nazis too, basically. And they're, yeah, but look at this great food we have. He says, it's the food. He says, that's why we allowed them to get away with it. But they're like, yeah, Hitler, Nazism, Mussolini, all that. Hey, have you tried the cannoli yet? It's fabulous, I got some steeping on the stove, so.
You don't worry about that. Take some cannoli.
Don't worry about that, okay?
You know how you can tell an Italian-made tire?
Oh.
They go wop, 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 wop.
Nice.
Oh, my God.
In Australia, when I lived in Australia, they didn't call them wops. They call them wogs. W-O-G. I don't know why, but I know WOP stands for without papers. But
John Ward used to say wog, and he said, "Can I say that on the air?" Because wog wog was also a derogatory term for black people, if I remember correctly, his definition. So I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. And
in Australia, they would call the off the subject here, but they would call Arabic people, because they brought camels. They'd call them camel jockeys, and then they would call all the British, because Australians hate the British, and they would call them Poms. P-O-M-S, P-O-M-S, Poms, as in pompous asses. Pompous assholes, so they were Poms. Oh, he's a Pom.
I got to tell you, there was one time I had John Ward. I don't think I've ever told this on the radio. One time John Ward was here, was 2014, for the 2014 Paradigm Symposium. and I flew him in from Egypt, and he's sitting in my garage, as he would say. You know, with his he's taking his suit coat off, his tweeds. He's got his tweed vest on, his cravat, and he's sitting in the garage. We're having a cigarette and a coffee, and one of our neighbors had a bunch of kids. They had like this group of 9 black kids came walking down the street. There were a couple of different families represented in that household, and John looks and he goes, "Oh." He turns to me and says, "I see you have Negroes." I go, "Shh, John, you can't say that out loud." He goes, "Oh." He says, "Are they here to work for you?" Or I said, "Just stop now while you're ahead. Stop. I see you have Negroes." I said, "John, they're not mine." So,
and isn't that the thing? Isn't that the thing about all of this language shit that we're all swimming through? Is all based on perspective and some carefully crafted little thing that somebody has said. Well, you are these characteristics, ergo you are X identity, and it's clearly designed to cause division, because the problem, what it does is it creates this confusion within everybody's perspective about themselves, particularly if it's one that you have held for a long time. Something that, like, I am a straight white male, and I have this, all of a sudden it seems like, whites are the only race that can be legally harassed and told that they are racists. Everybody else is okay. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity, your background, or hell, even what you identify from a gender perspective.
Right.
White males in particular, we have been pigeoned into this protected class of the ones that you can attack with impunity. Yep. And so I'm looking at it and saying, well, if the whole thing is choice of identity, and that seems to be the freedom that everybody is saying thou shalt have and must have and can exercise as
unless you're white.
I've decided that, particularly because I'm a privileged white male and an old white male to boot, so I've actually got the whole thing of sitting on the front porch, yelling at the clouds and shooting at shit on my lawn, right? So I've decided that I have reviewed myself. I've realized that I was born visible. So I've decided that I'm now going to identify as invisible. And my pronouns are who and where.
Yeah, who and where. There it is. Pronouns. There's a lot of buildup for that, but I get it. That was very good.
It's a good, you can just say to him, I'm offended. You're not allowed to see me. I identify as invisible.
Yeah,
it's a great point you make, Professor.
In the sense of how as vaccinated.
It's a great point you make, because we're so PC now that we can't say words like nigger or spick or Jew, Jew
for the day.
Or whatever. Everybody's
my monetization is gone now.
And nigger is a word that's set up in the Webster dictionary as ignorant person, just like redneck.
Right.
Or pagan, which is Roman for paganistic, a pagan, earth worshiper. And I was called as a kid a prairie nigger, because I was a Native American. So all these terms, they're so, I love Mel Brooks because he did Blazing Saddles and he made fun of everybody. He was Jewish. Yeah. You couldn't do a movie like that now. We're so PC.
I saw that Blazing Saddles was going to air tonight, edited for television, and it's going to air from 8 to 8:07.
They took the black guy.
And to your crazy point, Ruben, about the terms. And has anybody seen Chris Rock's new special on Netflix?
I haven't seen that.
I mean, he's dropping N-bombs throughout the whole thing across all of his folks. And I remember back in the 90s when I was called a wigger because I would go hang with the bros, right? But I was the token white guy. And well, growing up in the 60s and 70s in Los Angeles, I was not too far from Watts.
Token white guy.
Yeah.
The Wiggers. All right. But I was in church. I used to love to go to the black churches because it was, God damn, could those people sing and feel the music. And that was incredibly powerful for me. And a lot of my friends were black. And we kept hearing all this stuff about, these different names and terms. And we had wetbacks coming over from the south of the border.
Yeah.
We had
beaners,
all of
beaners,
the different, the beaners. Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
and
all of that.
And they were more, I think there was more of an endearment sense of the use of those words than they were derogatory.
You're right.
But it eventually became it became very, toxic because a few people decided to use it in a very derogatory sense. But now we're in this cacophony of crap of people that have got these mental craniums that they're either vacuous or they've caved in on themselves and they can't think for themselves. So they're told that they have to, you've got to identify with this, you've got to respect that, you're in this class, in this category, you're in this identity group. And it doesn't take more than about 5 or 10 minutes to get completely confused. You don't know who you can say what to.
Yeah, there's a great comedian named Mike Birbiglia. He's a white guy. And I call all my African American friends. I don't call him Afro American. I say that he's my black friend. They don't mind. It doesn't bother. Mm-hmm. Or they'll say, "This is my Indian friend, American Indian, not Indian American."
Yeah.
So Mike Birbiglia would do this routine, this bit, where he would say, nobody can say the N-word anymore. We can't use that word, but black people use it among themselves, and that's okay. So he said, I thought I'd flip it by saying, well, me and my cracker friends are driving in our Volvo going down the road and eating some sun chips. And I said, Cracker, can I have some chips? He's like, Cracker, please. Cracker, what? like they would say, nigger, please. Nigger, what? But they were using the term cracker. So
what's
I'm going to get a letter from YouTube tomorrow that says you had this Native American guy overusing the word nigger on your show, so we're going to demonetize your episode. So,
isn't that going to be an interesting? It's going to be an interesting way for them to mediate that, because you got an American Indian talking about African Americans. It's like, well, wait a minute, their algorithm's going to get all fucked up. But there's an interesting segment in Chris Rock's new special, which I found kind of fascinating, and the audience got a good kick out of it. This whole Meghan Markle bullshit. I haven't followed it, but apparently one of the things that she complained about was the somebody asking about what color of brown the baby was going to be, or some bullshit like that. And I don't know what was going on there, but Chris Rock goes on it and he says, "What is this shit about her talking about, everybody wondering what the brown the baby's going to be?" He said, "Bitch, all of us blacks look at that and ask that question. Is it going to be this black or is it going to be this black?" Because there's so many different variations of it in between, which is true. But I think that, it's fascinating to watch the machinations, that the mental gymnastics and fornication that everybody is trying to push on everybody to gauge and manage the dialogue. What's the word?
See, that's why I'm an anti-labeler. Stop labeling things.
Right. It's like, leave us the fuck alone, will you?
Oh, I brought this up at one
labels
other time
should be about honorifics
about Angela Davis. I thought that was very interesting. Angela Davis, who was the titular head of the Black Panthers in the 60s and the early 70s, and kind of hot back then too. And but she's older now, and she's been a Black rights movement leader for ever since her Black Panther days. And now she did that show. You catch it on PBS more than anywhere else, where I don't remember the name of the host, but he digs into the DNA and the pasts of celebrities. And I think he's the one that had, Ben Affleck, and found out that Ben Affleck's family 150 years ago owned slaves, and Ben Affleck had a meltdown. Well, on this show, they did Angela Davis, who, I don't know if she coined the phrase, but she used it. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And so it was very interesting to find out on this show that her DNA links her directly through, I don't know if it was her father or mother, but to one of the passengers on the Mayflower. And so a white passenger on the Mayflower got off at Plymouth Rock, and which is very ironic. And so she's related to, in all her blackness, she has the bloodlines of somebody who came over on the Mayflower. And
which
she
landed on Plymouth Rock.
Stunned to learn. And then they find out her other parent in their DNA was a white family that had owned slaves in the South. And she was absolutely dumbfounded by all this information. And so what does that tell you?
People don't know that the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, Choctaw people, the 5 civilized nations coined as in the Southeast, had slaves, but they also integrated with the slaves. They married them. They became a part. So not all African-American Black people in this country are part in fact, Native American as well as
in
Black.
The Trail of Tears, they took their slaves with them.
Yeah.
And in the famous painting of the Trail of Tears, all the blacks are removed. They've not put them in.
Wow. It's crazy because it's for those people out there that are offended that I said the word nigger several times now. I've got 2 family members, my niece, who's half Dominican, Black, and half Lakota. I've had an uncle that 2 uncles, their last names are White Buffalo, Homer White Buffalo, and his brother Charlie White Buffalo. Same mother, different fathers.
Great first names.
And so Homer, his father was Black, and Homer is half Black and half Lakota. And Charlie, his brother, his father was white, but his mother was Lakota. And so Charlie looked like a white guy, and Homer looked like a Black guy. And so there's a joke that they would say Homer and Charlie, the brothers, were walking down the street in McIntosh, South Dakota, to the local pub to get a beer or ale, and they were talking in Lakota. And this old Indian guy was sitting on the curb, hung over, and he heard them speaking Lakota. But all he could see was, oh my God, I must be sick, because there's a Black guy and a white guy speaking my language coming down the street.
Nice.
So,
it's
America. We're all mutts,
how many of us?
Less.
I found old photos of our ancestors, the late 1800s, the early 1900s. My own brother commented, and he says, "Wow, he looks like he has Black blood in him, Native American blood. Some of his features, he looked like he kind of had that Obama type of tall, lean. He was definitely white in the picture, but his features were very Obama-esque." My brother asked, "Do we have any Black?" And I don't know. I don't find any. I said it's not saying it couldn't have happened, but somewhere along the way, I had ancestors who owned slaves in the 1840s and the 1850s, and going all the way back to Wales. So I think we're pretty white in our bloodlines.
They owned whales. You shouldn't own whales. Whales are free people.
The problem with that is aquarium size.
It's interesting you say that.
Tank awfully quick.
It's interesting you say that, Scotty. It's interesting you say that, Scotty, because the 2 brothers, my uncles, Homer was the Black Lakota, and his brother Charlie was the White Lakota, and they both spoke the language. Homer actually became an FBI agent, the Black Lakota, and Charlie, his brother, became a prevalent Lakota instructor.
Would you
like
say
myself,
that was their
teacher.
What was their family name?
White Buffalo. So Homer, White Buffalo. Charlie, White Buffalo.
It seems so out of place. I was going to say anachronistic. That's not the right word. But what is your family name? White Buffalo. What's your first name? Homer. It's like I'm Homer White Buffalo. Fear me.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Charlie, So
it's Professor, I'd ask you a question here in regards to I don't know the terminology. There's a name for it when my people are prejudiced against each other, and it's not just my people, it's also black people. Like you said, some blacks look cinnamon, they got red hair, and then some are super dark, and they kind of grade each other. What is that terminology where I'm searching for, where you kind of are prejudiced against your own people as opposed to white people or Asian people?
He's white on the left side of his face. I'm black on the left side of my face. Yeah, remember that old Star Trek episode?
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what that term is.
Yeah,
but there's a gradation
Battlefield or something was the title.
Of each different cultural and racial characteristics. I mean, you can find just in Irish. I mean, there's different tones of red hair.
Oh, sure.
There's different ways in which the skin is either extremely pasty and glistening white. Some have freckles. I mean, there's all these different variations, and even among
women, we like
the most
call
difficult
it ceramic. It's a milky white skin.
One of the most difficult races to delineate is the Asians. I mean, I don't know how many times I spent a fair amount of time in Asia, and Japan, and Beijing, Hong Kong, Singapore, and it's easier to tell a Malaysian a difference between a Malaysian and a Chinese or a Japanese or even a Korean. But you can get a Korean, Japanese, and a Chinese together in the same room, and unless you have spent any time, you're not going to know which one is which.
So a Korean, Japanese, and a Chinese and a Vietnamese guy all walk into a bar. Bartender throws his rag on the bar and says, "What do you think this is, a joke?" So yeah, and I mean that's it. Korean. They're always I can usually tell Korean. You walk into the little Korean grocer and he's like, you'll find the hot dog over in the freezer. Hey, and they've got they all seem to have that brusque language about it. But then, Korean women will chide me now because they're like, we don't talk that way at all. And well, that was
one
Spanish.
of the things that I know is that some of the main characteristic differences between a Chinese and a Japanese. Because Japanese, I mean, they all have this very rigid way, in a sense, and I mean rigid in a sense of a disciplined way in which they engage.
Thank you, Ro.
But Chinese are more aggressive in it, whereas Japanese are more reserved in it. So I've noticed that characteristic. They're still using the same characteristics, the same respect, the same modalities, but there's more of a with Chinese and more of a with the Japanese. So
Japanese,
and now Koreans are somewhere in between. They have a different way in which they express their the way that they interact with people. But I can tell you this. If I was ever in a disaster and there was some shit going down somewhere, some big natural, I don't care if it's an earthquake or tsunami or whatever, I'd want to be with the group of Asians because those mofos have more control and discipline about going and getting shit done than just about any other culture as a characteristic. I wouldn't want to be around a bunch of white folks.
Genetic trait,
be nothing but hollering, screaming, and shit pants shitting, I guess.
Is that a genetic trait or a cultural norm?
I think it's a cultural norm because Native Americans have the same same effect.
And we all know Native Americans ain't organized at all.
we just kind of reserve it. Observe.
Yes,
is the word observation. How
culturally, I think for them though, there's less of an individual and more of a team unit sort of concept.
You know, Dave, when I was kind of bar hopping in Rapid City, and I was a smoker.
Those were the days.
I smoked those days, and
the good old
so days. I would go outside and you know, the smoke, you had to smoke outside now, so we smoked outside, those that smoked, and then I would just kind of do my own little random test, and I would say, I'm gonna, you know, I learned this from Brad Pitt, the actor. I don't know him, but he told this, and so I applied it, and I said, I'd tell the people that I was smoking with, strangers, I'd say, I would say, can I do a test on you? And they would say, sure. What kind of test? I said, it's called the actor's test. The actor's test. And so they said, okay. And I said, well, all you got to do is just, think it and say it as quick as you can. And I said, when you look at me, what is my ethnicity? And they would just immediately say, oh, you're Chinese. Oh, you're Japanese. Or you're, Korean or something like that. I said, no, I'm Native American, believe it or not. And, they got it wrong every time. But it was just interesting to see what people think when we look at somebody and kind of guess. In Australia, I can't tell the difference between an Australian and a Kiwi, a New Zealander, because there's, just like many people think.
I can't tell the difference between the two.
And also, I was in Australia exchanging money at a bank in Australia, Adelaide, South Australia. And, so these two blokes left, and I went up and I exchanged my money. And the bank teller looked at me and said, "Oh, are you Canadian?" And I said, "No, I'm American." And she said, "Wow, really?" And she said, "Those two blokes that just left, I asked them if they were American. And they said, no, we're Canadian."
Well, Canadians are nicer that way.
Yeah. So Ruben, your facial hair now gives you more of an Asian look.
Yeah, it's my Fu Manchu look.
Yeah,
I'm doing the Fu
Manchu. And it's all lighter than it used to be.
I can't do this like you guys. This is all I got.
What's the coloring? I thought your hair was black.
Yeah, I thought
it is black, but it's gray on the sides, and my facial hair, and sad to say, my cock hairs are the same color. So it's crazy. It's just everything's changing.
You wait.
On that whole question, what you were talking about, Ruben, with they, weren't sure if you were Asian or African American or whatever they were trying to figure out you were. I recently caught some clips of the old TV show Kung Fu with David Carradine, right?
Oh yeah,
and that was a big
grasshopper.
That was a big deal back then because he was not Asian, right? No. And so I watched these clips and I was looking at his facial features, and what really gave him the sense of filling that role was his mannerisms. It wasn't his eyes.
Well, of course, wasn't the character supposed to be a Caucasian boy who was taken in by the Shaolin Temple?
I'm
he
not
had a
sure
little bit of Chinese
blood
in him. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but I got to tell you that what was that show back in the 70s or something? The choreography and the acting was absolute shit. I mean, it was so. It was so.
Hey,
shall
Chinaman,
we say?
can you
it was
dance?
so whitewashed. I was looking at it, going,
Yeah.
I used to watch that show and go, wow, this is really good. And now I'm watching these reruns. I'm going, now I see why it wasn't.
You
that
know,
good.
it's all those old shows we grew up with in the 60s and the 70s. They were great. Now you watch them now and you're like, that's pretty.
They're very cringe. As the kids say nowadays, they're very cringe.
They're
very cringe.
Yes.
You know, but I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. During that time frame, the only thing I really enjoyed with my father, who turned me onto it, was Star Trek, because Gene Roddenberry did unprecedented things. He brought in Chekhov, communist or Russian, Uhura, who's black, Uhura. He brought in Scotty, and then he brought in Leonard Nimoy, an alien.
And of course, the Chinese with you're supposed to be
George
Takei. He brought in the drunken Irishman with O'Reilly as well.
O'Reilly.
I thought that wasn't that Scotty?
Take home again, Kathleen. No,
so
O'Reilly, the minor character.
The whole point I'm trying to say is that Gene Roddenberry brought all these things together, and things happened. It changed a lot of the way we observe things.
The captain of the ship, he was still from Iowa.
He was still from Iowa, and
goddamn white privileged son bitch.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that was the doctor. He was from Kentucky.
Bones, McCoy. So the interesting thing about that was that they did interviews with all members. Some of them are gone now, but one of them I found really interesting was Uhura, Michelle Nichols, who just died last year, the black lieutenant. Yeah. She and William Shatner did the first interracial kiss on Star Trek. That never did that before.
And she showed. I don't think she was the first one, but she showed a navel in one show. I think it was the episode Mirror, Mirror, where they were in the mirror universe and the uniforms are all cut away.
Well, I actually think, and I've kind of tracked this a little bit. I could be wrong, but I think it was I Dream of Jeannie. And I think that
Barbara Eden.
I think that navel is what got
the show. If you notice the early episodes of I Dream of Jeannie, she didn't show navel. She had that little midriff cover-up thing.
Well, she was pregnant during the first season.
But Barbara Eden, when I was a kid, you thought Ruben talking about his white pubic hairs was bad? My first boner. Barbara Eden, I Dream of Jeannie. I so wanted to be an astronaut after that and find
it's interesting because when they did the interviews with the Star Trek crew, George Takei and everybody else, Scotty wasn't really Scottish. He was American, but he had a Scottish accent. Michelle Nichols had, she was going to quit. She was going to quit Star Trek because she was female and she was black, and it was just rough times in the 60s and 70s. So she was going to quit on the day. She was going to quit on the day, and then she got this knock on the door, and lo and behold, she opened it up, and who was standing there but Martin Luther King Jr. And he sat with her and talked and said, "What you're doing is wow."
You encouraged her to not quit.
Yeah. Stay on, please. It's unprecedented what you're doing. It's great. We need more of you.
And that really became her whole life, was that character. And it's too bad that back in the 60s that they didn't sign those contracts with residuals. From my understanding is none of them have any residuals from the series. All those residuals came as they started.
They do with the films, but not with the series.
Yep. Not with the series.
And let us not forget the white female privilege that enabled that to be brought to the screen in Lucille Ball.
Was a redhead. Yep.
Right?
Lucille
if she
Ball
was the only, everybody else turned it down. She said, I want some of that.
And she's the one who they paid for the second pilot to be made when they turned down the original pilot with Jeffrey Hunter in the role as Captain Pike. Too cerebral for the public mind, they said.
Yep.
So anyway, on that note, folks, It's 11:05 on Sunday morning. Unless you didn't put your clock forward, it's 10:05 or 11:05 out east.
It's bacon and eggs time.
There it is. And
Gotta
so,
go wake the parents up and make
it's
breakfast.
time to get out of here. And I've had my 18-hour fast, and so I'm ready to, eat a leg. So all of you, thank you for being here. Uncle Dave, good to have you here. We'll see you. And Professor Bauer, good to see you as well, brother.
Ruben, brother,
Always
thank
good to
you
have
very
you here.
much.
And Ruben, Chia,
Always.
Misu, you're not Chia, you're not big brother. You're
Misu.
little brother. Misu, good to see you. And I'll catch you again soon. All right, everybody, that was it. That's all we had for today. Could we have done more? Sure, we could have done more. We could have gone longer, but why? Be sure to come back on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of this week for the Intrepid radio program right here on this YouTube channel and also on subspace.radio, the audio at the radio station. And Tuesday with Wendy Robertson and I for Robertson, and be a full week. So you all go have a good time to the rest of your day. I hope that you have some good plans for today. Maybe go out to the woods if you're not buried in snow. That might be kind of nice, huh? Or just hang out with the family or by yourself, whatever you're going to do the rest of the day. And so for now, live long and prosper.